say about him?
I gotta be careful how I balance this, because it might sound like I'm defending the movie, but I do have some legitimate criticisms, some big criticisms with this movie. I don't think this movie is as bad as half a star, or even the 1.5 on Letterboxd and everything, which converted to a C plus, or what'd you say, C minus?
C minus because David Ehrlich writes for IndieWire, so it's 1.5 stars on his letterbox, but it's a C minus on IndieWire.
Damn,
I don't get that.
I wish I could get those kind of grades. All right,
The bell curve.
5 star. Yeah, it's like shit. All right. Okay, so this movie, if you notice, and Steve kind of said it too, with the whole thing of it being like produced by Jordan Peele, from producer Jordan Peele. Jordan Peele presents, Jordan Peele this, Jordan Peele that. It made me a little worried as the movie was getting closer to being released. It's like, okay, typically when you see that kind of stuff, it's never a good sign. It's like Justin Tipping directing music videos, which is sometimes a bad sign as well, like Steve pointed out. But I've seen movies directed by music video directors, and I thought they were good. We just reviewed one last week. Francis Lawrence used to direct music videos before he directed movies. What else? I mean, for God's sakes,
Spike Jonze.
Spike Jonze. Yeah, Spike Jonze.
Scorsese.
Scorsese, yeah. Did Spike Jonze like Superfly?
Spike Jonze is the guy on Jackass. He made Her.
Okay. The guy that directed the recent Superfly remake, he made music videos, and I thought Superfly was stylish, and it was perfect for that kind of movie.
That was Director X.
Director X, there we go. I was like, he had a nice, like, distinct name to him. Him, though, does fall into some of those trappings that people look at when it comes to a music video director directing a feature-length film. But in some cases, with this movie, I think it helps the movie, because I think the production value of this movie is really damn good. The look of the movie, the cinematography, the sets and everything of like Marlon Wayans' compound that he goes to, all of that's great. I even love like the whole fictional football universe that they have, and like the teams they've created and the mascots and everything. And I think that's really cool that they even went further with it with the promotional material. I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and I think that Marlon Wayans puts in a pretty good performance. I rarely have seen this guy do dramatic roles. I know he's in was it Crash? No, it's what's it called? It's his most like dramatic role he's done. It was very early 2000s. Oh my god.
Requiem
for a Dream. Yeah. I know everybody says that's like his best role he's done dramatically, but I still have not seen that. I've seen him in other things where he's been dramatic, and I was like, oh, I would love to see not Jordan Peele. I'd love to see Marlon Wayans do that kind of stuff. And he does great here. He plays off Tyreek Withers really well, who was just recently in another horror movie that I think is way worse than this movie, which is I Know What You Did Last Summer.
I wonder if
live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, it's Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube. We come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening, 6:30 Central Time, off last week. It's good to be back this week, albeit last-minute healthy scratch. Dominic, not with us today to talk about one battle after another. We will make do. It's one show, one review after another over here on Sleepless with Steve. We'll find a way to make do, though, although I would appreciate, I think, next week's show, we'll have Dom start the show with his thoughts on one battle after another, because this might not be the most financially lucrative movie of the year by any stretch, even though it is making pretty good money. But it is definitely, I think we can go on to say, as of now, it's probably the most critically acclaimed movie of the year.
Oh, yeah.
It has universally been loved. It has got currently, for what this means to you, a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is obviously very high. Audiences are very high on it, too, especially if you lurk in the catacombs of Letterboxd and things like that. Audiences are very high on this movie as well. We do not get Paul Thomas Anderson movies very often, so when we do, they are real event movies, too. And I don't want to spoil kind of my opening thoughts on this movie and whatnot, too, but Paul Thomas Anderson, it begs a reminder, and I feel like we get a reminder of it every time he makes a new movie, is that this is only his 10th movie since 1996. He is not very prolific. He takes a lot of time with his projects. And he's also a filmmaker that is not easily classifiable. And we'll talk more about that too, or at least I will, kind of going into opening thoughts on this movie. One battle after another. That's what we're talking about today. First things first, Joe Viso, this show would not operate without you, quite literally. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm very excited to talk about this movie tonight. It was one of those things where it's like I was a little late to the party on this movie because the week these guys were supposed to review it, I was out. And I didn't see it opening weekend. I was like, well, I originally was going to, and then plans just kind of fell through. I'm like, I'll just catch it the following weekend. So, upon catching it the following weekend, I was just like, oh, I'm so glad I get to review with the guys. Unfortunately, Dom isn't here. Last minute scratch, like Steve said. But regardless, this is a movie I really wanted to talk about compared to... I didn't see The Smashing Machine, but like... After seeing this movie, I was like, yeah, I really want to talk about this no matter what. I don't care how good The Smashing Machine was. I feel like this would just be a great discussion.
Yeah, and The Smashing Machine, as much as I do want to see that, I have yet to see that movie. As much as I do want to see that movie really landed with a thud.
Yeah, man.
I was looking at the box office and figures the other day. It didn't make shit. It's surprising because I don't think it was poorly promoted. I just think people didn't care.
Yeah.
Or didn't know exactly what it was or something. I've heard good things about it. I don't think it's a bad movie, but I was taken aback by how poorly that thing did. So now when we get like fucking Red Notice 5 and Jungle Cruise in space, I don't want to hear no bitching either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to hear no bitching when we get like decentralized intelligence with Kevin Hart. You know what I mean?
Well, and I asked my friends who, I was like, so how come you guys weren't interested in going to see the movie? And they're all like, well, The Rock, he's in so many movies, and it just feels like, he's just trying to go for an Oscar in this movie. And I'm just like, all right, I can understand the first point, but the second point's not a bad thing because it's what people want to see more out of The Rock. Like, okay, can you not play the same character? Can you do something else? He does it, and look what happens. Now, when you get him working in the jungle wearing a white T-shirt for the next 6 movies, don't be pissed.
No, it's true. And it was on TV the other night, and it was a Rock movie that I forgot about. I saw it in theaters,
Rampage?
and I watched. No, I didn't watch that
okay.
one. No, I watched 5-10 minutes of it, and I was kinder to it in my review than a lot of people. I kind of liked it, and I caught it for 5 to 10 minutes just in passing. Skyscraper.
Dude, I keep forgetting about that movie. It's his Die Hard ripoff.
Yeah, it's a total Die Hard ripoff. It's directed by Ross and Marshall Thurber,
Yeah.
who I think made 30 Minutes or Less. It's not a bad movie. Like, it really isn't. I remember seeing it in theaters with rock bottom, no pun intended, expectations, and was really like kind of captivated by it. I was like,
Yeah.
it's a muscle movie. It's a popcorn movie, but it was
Yeah.
entertaining. I don't know. I like movies in tall buildings. I'm very easy to please. I like I'm petrified of heights, but I like movies in buildings and like very like tall structures. I like movies in malls.
I just
You know,
imagine a trailer starting off like in a world where, and you're just like, oh, here we go, tall buildings. Now we're fucking talking.
I mean, I like that kind of shit. I'm weird. Like, I mean, not the same thing, but like Fall. Like, I love
Fall's a great movie. Yeah,
I
I love
love
that
movies
movie.
set like that. You know what I mean? That are just like almost single setting and whatnot. I'm not
Yeah.
saying Skyscraper's high art. I think I gave it 2.5 out of 4
Well,
stars.
you know what?
But
Honestly, a single setting often brings a lot of tension. You're stuck there with the
correct.
characters. You know, that's what makes even though I'm with you, I think Die Hard 3 is the best Die Hard. But Die Hard 1 is a great movie. It's a great tense action film
Absolutely.
because he's outnumbered in a building that he's not familiar with, and half of it's under construction too.
Yeah, it's that kind of stuff that raises tension, and it just kind of makes it just a really strategically plotted pot boiler, if you will.
Yeah.
So, no, I completely agree there. We'll dive in though. There was a lot to chew on with this one battle after another. Paul Thomas Anderson, PTA as the cool kids call him, as the film students call him. PTA's new movie, his 10th feature, his first since Licorice Pizza, which I absolutely adored a couple of years ago. That was like another movie. I remember it was like, I don't know, it's a weird thing, but I went with my two buddies. They went and saw The Matrix Resurrections. I already saw The Matrix 4 on HBO Max. And then I went to Licorice Pizza. And I remember that because it was like December. It was like the first, because the previous December was COVID, so I wasn't at the theater. And then like this, it was like that Christmas time vibe, going to the theater to see this really well-made comedy drama by one of the best directors, one of the best living American directors in Paul Thomas Anderson, and everything like that. And Licorice Pizza was just a lovely movie through and through. And then fast forward, 4 years later, and Cooper Hoffman, the star of The Long Walk,
Yeah.
you know, after that launch pad. But yeah, this is Paul Thomas Anderson's first movie. If you need a refresher, Paul Thomas Anderson, responsible for Boogie Nights, commonly considered, also this one, commonly considered to be one of the best movies of the last decade, There Will Be Blood, which is a phenomenal film, top to bottom. Inherent Vice, Phantom Thread with Daniel Day-Lewis, which was like the last movie DDL did until this new one that's coming out, Anemone,
Yeah.
that's directed by his son Ronan, I believe. But PTA's back, and one of the great things about PTA as a filmmaker is you get the impression, I mean, a lot of his early movies, and I love Boogie Nights. I really do. That's a great film. A lot of his early movies, though, you can definitely tell he wears his influences on his sleeve. Like, he's like, look what Scorsese taught me. I watched Raging Bull 10 times. Look at how this is like Raging Bull. Like, the last couple movies he's done, Licorice Pizza, and now this, it doesn't feel like he owes anything to anybody or has to prove himself anymore. He really feels like his own man. And
Yeah.
he's always felt like somebody that's tried so hard and successfully not to be boxed in as a filmmaker. You think of Martin Scorsese movies, you think of mob movies. Granted, he's made a hell of a lot more than mob movies, but his mob movies are some of his biggest movies. That's what you think of when you think of Scorsese. When you think of Spike Lee, you think of movies that deal with race and class. That's not
Or New
all of
York.
his movies. Or New York. That's not all of his movies. That's a lion's share. Like, but with PTA, you don't really have that. You have what I think of Paul Thomas Anderson is I think of a wide canvas. I think of a period in time. I think of whether it's the underbelly of the California porn industry, whether it's the 19th century oil boom, whether it's the 1950s London and Phantom Thread or something like that. I think of just like a wide canvas, like he's somebody with a gigantic diorama and a very specific point in time. And he drops us into that point in time, peppers the movie with a lot of interesting, flavorful characters, and we just sit back for 2-3 hours and are in this world. And what's different about One Battle After Another, there's a lot of things that are different than what he's previously done. But this is based off of Thomas Pynchon's novel Vineland. And from what I've read, it's not really a loyal adaptation of the book. It's more of a thematic adaptation of the book. That is a book that concerns sort of the changing of American politics and culture from the 1960s to the 1980s. This movie does not have a set designated period of time. The only thing that gives it a modern flavor is the fact that there are cell phones.
Yeah.
That's the only sort of tell in the movie.
That's actually really funny because, like, well, there's actually another thing too. I didn't know. I was like, I wonder what period this takes place in. Like, 'cause when the movie opens, it's like this could be the 80s, this could be the 90s. And then like we flash forward, and it's like I still don't know what time period. This could be the early 2000s. And then yeah, you see a smartphone, but it also gives away is when the main character's daughter goes to a dance and they're playing oh my god, what are they playing at the homecoming dance? It's the most Gen Z song. Yeah, Mo Bamba. They're playing the most Gen Z song ever. I'm like, all right, we're in current day. Got it.
I'm like, oh, we got Mo Bamba, Sheck West, baby. Anyway, no, very good point. Very, very good tell on that. Yeah, this is a movie. It's a little tough to explain, but essentially what this movie revolves around is it opens with sort of a far left extremist group known as the French 75. Two of the members in there are a couple, a young couple. They are Perfidia and Bob, played by Tiana Taylor and Leonardo DiCaprio. And they are part of like a militant activist group that goes about change through violence, whether it is releasing migrants from a detention center, whether it's orchestrating the robbing or bombing of banks. Very militant, far left terrorist organization.
Yeah.
And essentially in the opening prologue, I'm trying to figure out how much I want to give away of this movie. Perfidia goes about having this sort of like serving as like a sexual distraction to a commanding officer named Stephen Lockjaw, played by Sean Penn. And Lockjaw is this like steely-eyed white supremacist. He's part of a far-right group known as the Christmas Adventurers that's comprised of a lot of major political players, including himself.
Hey, God, yeah, I don't know how much I want to give away either, because it's like he's not part of it yet. He's applying for it, and he's got to complete something to like basically earn his stars and stripes of it.
True. So that's the thing. This is one of those movies too that it doesn't jump around, but it does kind of propel you to different perspectives and different points in time in so many ways. But I'll say this, 16 years, this prologue's about maybe 25 minutes. 16 years later, I'm just going to say Perfidia's gone. And Bob is now raising their daughter, Willa, who is played by Chase Infinity. And she's about 16 years old. They kind of have this frosty father-daughter relationship where he's like this, like, ever since she was born, he's wanted to settle down and become like a dad and have a family, where Perfidia wanted to continue the activist lifestyle as opposed to embrace motherhood, which is an understandable push-pull. And then Lockjaw comes back into the picture and sends Willa and Bob on the run, in so many words. That's about what I will go with it. How far I'm going to go with this in terms of a plot. But I want kind of a baseline because there's a lot of intricacies in this movie, and it's a long movie too. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my baseline. Where would you like to go from there, Joe?
I'll add this just so I can jump off of this point as well, is that Lockjaw is like, he's basically trying to wrap up loose ends from being humiliated, because when his operation, which was, you know, basically rounding up a bunch of migrants to ship them back off, to send them back to Mexico and everything, he gets embarrassed by the French 75. They basically ruin his whole operation. They leave him handcuffed, including his whole platoon of soldiers that are at this camp and everything, that he ends up losing like his rank, that like it basically sends him on a whole revenge like story of like, I'm gonna get my revenge on the French 75 for doing this to me. Meanwhile, the French 75 throughout the rest of these 16 years before we get to the modern day, you see them do their other operations like Steve is saying and everything. I'm gonna say this, I absolutely love this movie. I know usually we don't like jump into it right away, we kind of build our way up there and everything. I fell in love with this movie very quickly, and it really was because of the first 25 minutes. I mean, it's practically a short film in itself, man. Like, it's just like this could have been like its own movie if we really wanted to spend more time here. But no, we get this really just condensed, tight 25 minutes of just intense, like, back and forth cat and mouse game between the French 75 and Lockjaw, as like he's slowly making his way back to the scene while they're like getting bigger and bigger in terms of operations and scale of what they want to do in order to like spread their ideas and cause domestic terrorism in order to like further push their agendas and everything. I also really love she's in I'm not gonna say she's in the movie a whole lot, but for the time she's in the first 25 minutes of this movie, Tiana Taylor kills it, dude. She's great in the first 25 minutes of this movie. I wouldn't be surprised if, even though like she's not in the movie a whole lot, if she does actually get nominated for Best Supporting Actress or even Best Lead Actress, because I know there's like how that gets determined is really up to the Academy. There's been people who have won it for having 2 minutes of screen time. There's been people who have won it who have been on screen the entire time, more than the lead actress and their Best Supporting Actress. So it's however they want to determine that. But I really
Lily Gladstone clause.
Yeah, I really think it just comes down to how much of an impact you leave in a movie. And she was definitely someone, as I was leaving the movie, I was just like, I was thinking about her constantly and just everything I saw from her in those first 25 minutes. Alongside of that performance, Leonardo DiCaprio, who the last time I think I saw him, I just want to make sure this is true, it should have been that movie we just mentioned, Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yep.
Yeah, that is the last time I saw him in a movie. And coming off of that movie where he plays, cousin or nephew Curtis, whatever the hell his name is, where I felt like, you know what, for a Leonardo DiCaprio performance, this just wasn't it for me. I've seen him play tons of different characters with tons of different range, and it's just like this just didn't give me anything. De Niro gave me everything in this role. DiCaprio really didn't. I felt like this was kind of like not a nothing role, but just like this is just standard DiCaprio. Like I don't see him get all these people telling me he was gonna get nominated. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like this just feels like the standard Tom Hanks role we see every now and then. It's just like, okay, yeah, whatever, it's good, but like nothing really wowed me. Not that I don't think he'll get nominated for this, but I absolutely loved him as Bob. I loved his, it's like I don't know how we haven't gotten more comedic performances out of Leo since Catch Me If You Can, and especially Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because it's just like this guy's comedic timing is so damn good. And it's just like watching him in this movie be a total like he's just a dad trying to raise his daughter who unfortunately falls into from stress of worrying about being hunted down or being found out and having to go into hiding. He unfortunately falls into substance abuse of marijuana and alcohol. And it's just watching him try to like, become this revolutionist that he was like in his younger days and everything, but he's just a total screw up throughout most of the movie, was not only a lot of fun, but it made you feel like he was human. It made him feel a lot more relatable too, when at the end of the day he's just trying to save his daughter's life and everything. He is trying to help out as much as he can with some of the other causes and actions that people are doing along the way, such as Benicio del Toro's character, which I'll touch on shortly. But I absolutely loved Bob. And then last but not least, Sean Penn. God, man, what a good villain. A villain I just absolutely just was like, dude, you're just so weird that I hate you because of how weird you are. It's just like, I don't like you already just because of like, what you're doing throughout the movie, but I hate you because of just the weird tics you do, how you walk, how you talk, and everything. That meme of like his shoes, whack. The way he dresses, whack. That is his character throughout this whole movie as Lieutenant Lockjaw. Everybody throughout the movie is great, by the way. I just want to highlight those three performances as well, because I think those are the ones that could or should get nominated depending on which actor or actress you're talking about. Regina Hall, who I love to see her do more dramatic stuff. She's also not in the movie a whole lot, but when she is, she's really good. Chase Infinity for her first role ever to act alongside people like Leonardo DiCaprio, Sean Penn, and many others. She holds her ground very well. And last but not least, Benicio del Toro, one of my favorite, like, just cool guys in Hollywood, just, like, can really play a cool guy and everything. He plays that so perfectly here as Sensei,
Sergio.
Sensei Sergio, of just a guy about finding your zen and everything. And the more you learn about his character, and I love the way they reveal it, it's just him literally walking through his home. And you learn more and more about the character just by him walking through his home. The more you're just like, holy shit, this character has so much depth to them. It made me just appreciate this, how smartly written, well written this screenplay is from PTA, and just how perfectly directed it is too. There's so much more I can say as well, but I will pass off back to you.
Yeah, I'll stay on, because pick a performance here that's really good, and you're gonna find one.
Yeah,
I mean,
you could throw a dart at any of these, and all of them are good.
Chase Infinity making her acting debut alongside like Leonardo DiCaprio, Benicio del Toro, Sean Penn, and Tiana Taylor. Not a very easy thing to do, but she handles it. I will say with Leo, here's the thing with Leo that I thought was kind of fascinating. I feel like, and I formulated this when I was writing my review this afternoon, StevePulaski.com. Similar. Ever since Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Brad Pitt never found a way to leave like the ultra cool, impossibly handsome skin of Cliff Booth behind. Yep. I don't think Leonardo DiCaprio has left Rick Dalton behind. And it's not a criticism whatsoever. It's not. Because what's fascinating in this role for Leo is twofold. This is now like the second or third movie in recent time that he's played. If you look at his characters, and he's now at the age in his career, he does a movie a year, a movie every other year. He's not just taking a role for whatever. He's making an impact with a role.
Yeah.
He's done, I think, like fewer than 15 movies since Wolf of Wall Street. He's not in as much as you think. He's in a lot. He's in a lot because whenever he's in something, it's notable and it grabs headlines. But he's not as prolific as you might think, or as your mind might lead you to believe. DiCaprio, though, he has now played like Rick Dalton, his character in Don't Look Up.
Yeah.
His character in
Jordan Belfort. Honestly,
Jordan Belfort.
It is a dramatic role towards the end of the movie, but the first half I would say is more comedic.
And I would even throw in Killers of the Flower Moon, because he's playing sort of like a bumbling, less than intelligent, like a simpleton in that movie. I find it interesting. He just turned 50. Now his roles, usually now a lot of his contemporaries are taking like these ultra serious roles and everything, like these super dramatic.
Yeah.
And he seems to revel in these looser, schlubbier, scruffier characters that are like fucking Neanderthals at some points in here, like in one battle after another, that are just stupid. There's an actual line, one of my favorite lines that Leo says in this movie is when he comes home at like 4:00 in the afternoon after disappearing for like a whole day and tells his daughter, "Don't lecture me, I know how to drink and drive."
He has some great one-liners in this movie, man. Like, they had me cracking up.
Like he's excellent here. And the other thing that stands out to me about his performance here, besides the fact that like he's 50 and playing these like sort of like dirtier, like looser characters, is also the fact that like, and I have to go back and really look at his filmography to really prove it. How many times has he played a dad? Not many.
I don't know. One of my friends actually made a funny joke that like, she said, I think this is the first time I ever seen him play a dad. And is that why he's now starting to date older women? Because he learned how to be a father through this movie? He's just like, maybe I should.
Chase Infinity's 25 years old. He usually dates women that age. He doesn't, play their fathers in movies. I mean, but you don't see him play the paternal role. No. And, I mean, he's always been the heartthrob, the young actor and everything like that, even as he gets older. I mean, he's 50 and still doesn't look it.
Even when he was a dad, it was like you still saw him, and either the kids are in a point of, like, focus, or he's not a dad until later on in the movie. Inception, the kids are not a point of focus. Wolf of Wall Street, the baby doesn't show up till the last, like, 30-45 minutes of the movie, basically. I mean,
it's an accessory.
Yeah, and it's by the end of that movie too, it's an accessory like everything else was for Jordan Belfort in life.
Yeah, so for him to play a father is really different. Like, he actually is trying to be a dad to Willa in the movie. And I think that the thing that I love the most about this movie, and there's a lot to really like, even though I don't think I'm as high on it as everybody else, I loved the sort of like push-pull relationship of Bob and
Yeah.
Willa, excuse me, and how they are like they're at odds. And this was really summarized really well. I thought when I was reading a review of it from The Ringer, in that like the way that Bob and Willa are portrayed in this movie is what happens with like idealistic, activist minded, sort of like the activist minded people of the 70s who then grew up and had kids and lost that.
Yeah.
It's like when you're older, you have wisdom but no willpower. When you're young, you have willpower but no wisdom. And that is sort of the two, like, put them together, they're a complete person, Bob and Willa, if they could stop arguing. But if you put them together, but they're so divided, and obviously they don't have the mother, they don't have Perfida in the picture.
I was gonna say,
anymore.
honestly, you put them together, they become Perfida almost.
They really do, honestly. They're two halves of her personality. And
Yeah.
I just thought, like, just when I was writing about this earlier this afternoon, I really took away from, like, how much DiCaprio's, like, portrayal of another, like, mangy Livewire character meshes really well with him, like, struggling to be a dad. And, like, obviously there's comic possibilities for that are really exploited. I mean, in this movie, that some of the funniest shit is when he can't remember passcodes on the phone.
That's
and I'm
my
not
favorite
talking
joke.
like iPhone passcodes. I'm talking like codes and stuff on the phone. like some of that's some of the like oh man, I gotta be honest. I
love when Willa's
it
friends
is.
come pick her up and he pulls the one aside and he's like, let me tell you something. Anything you do to her, I'm gonna do your family and make it 10 times worse. It's just like, who is this guy?
Like, he means well, but he's so inept, and he's just gotten away with kind of being a burnout for so long. But I think DiCaprio, like, I think this is an impressive role for DiCaprio, far more impressive than Killers of the Flower Moon, more impressive on a different level than The Revenant, which is what he won Best Actor for at the Oscars. I think this is a really multi-layered role for him.
Yeah.
And it just struck me, though, just based on the fact that, like, how much Rick Dalton hasn't left him, and I'm not complaining. Just like I don't think Cliff Booth left Brad Pitt. I think those characters were so well drawn and illustrated, and like Rick Dalton or Leonardo DiCaprio is the Rick Dalton of the modern day, and Cliff Booth is the Brad Pitt of the 70s and the late 60s. That I think that like they adopted that sort of maybe subconsciously adopted those personas for their other roles.
And there's nothing wrong with that, because I remember walking out of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood just thinking to myself, like, those might have been the most fun performances I've seen from both those actors. Like, it was just like, I'm not saying it's the best performance they put on screen, but it's the most fun I've ever had. Like,
they were loose.
They were loose. And it just made me feel like maybe they felt the same way, and they're just like, hey, as I get older in my career here, I kind of want to do more roles like this. And hey, without it, I literally got two of my favorite films so far this year. I got F1 with basically Cliff Booth driving an F1 Formula car, and then I got, I got it over here with One Battle After Another, where Rick Dalton now has a daughter and everything.
Rick Dalton's the dirtball lefty.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, with a
he
daughter.
really grew up in Hollywood now. Like, so but it was just great to see like Leo go back to a role like that, but fully explore. Because I feel like Brad did that with F1 along with Bullet Train and some of the other ones that he's been on. But with Leo, it's like we kind of got that with Don't Look Up, and like you said, we kind of also got it with Killers of the Flower Moon. But this felt like, this feels like PTA really saw the potential with Leo as Rick Dalton in terms of playing a character like that, like who is going through a crisis, who is failing at life and trying to redeem himself and everything. And oh my God, Leo just knocks it out of the park here, man.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, and it's funny too because this movie is probably like the most blockbuster adjacent movie Paul Thomas Anderson has made. I mean, he got $175 million for this movie. Apparently, he only was allotted like $100 million, and then it like ballooned during production. It got really expensive.
You know what? And even though this movie's not doing good right now, Oscar buzz for this movie when they re-release it back in the theaters, it will generate, I'm guessing, another like 50 mil.
You know, it's made $106 million as of today. It's made $106 million worldwide. Honestly, for a nearly 3-hour movie based on a book, I'm willing to bet very few people have read, relative to the population. Very few people have read. on staying power on names alone, I don't think that's a terrible figure
No.
for this movie. But I'm bringing up this point just to say that, like, this is a very cinematic movie. This is a movie that is really well shot and really well directed, too. It's got a surplus of great aesthetics going for it. It was filmed in, I want to say this before the intermission, it was filmed in VistaVision, which is slowly making a comeback. If you don't know what VistaVision is, it is it's a 1950s style format of widescreen that is higher resolution. And it's another variant. It's basically high. If you want to look at it this way in high def, because I know, and even for me, technical terms on film stock get a little confusing. It is essentially high res 35 millimeter. Wider angles, wider shots, still has, and that's what kind of gives this movie this timeless feel. Has that like film grain sort of aesthetic to it, but also has like an older style to it where it doesn't look explicitly modern. It reminded me, and not just because it has at least 2 exhilarating car chases in the movie, it reminded me of like 70s car movies like Vanishing Point.
Yeah.
Reminded me a lot of that style, based on the fact that there's a lot of like canvases and there's a lot of landscapes and there's a lot of open air and open room in this movie.
Yeah.
Even interiors are shot kind of from a distance before we get like reverse shot between people. There's a lot of framing that sits in like the corner of the room that shows the entirety of the room, that shows off this VistaVision technology. VistaVision also came back into play last year because the first movie to use it in quite some time, it got a lot of Oscar nominations. Any guesses? Last year. Came out last year. It was this year's Oscars.
This year's Oscars. Was it
it's hard because we didn't see it.
Oh, we didn't see it. Okay. Well, I was gonna say it's The Substance. I don't know. There's something about it. Not The Substance. Shit, hold on. Oscar now. Just say it before we go to intermission.
No, The Brutalist.
Ah, yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I was gonna say Conclave. That was the one I was thinking of. I don't know why I thought Substance at first.
No worries. That was probably a bad trivia question because we didn't see it. But either way, though, it is this is one of them. This and The Brutalist are one of the only movies since the 1960s to use VistaVision as its principal format. Which I thought was really interesting and speaks to sort of the style that this movie wants to achieve. We got more to talk about, and I think we're going to talk a lot more about the aesthetics and the style of it, too, as well as the performances in one battle after another. Don't go anywhere. Back in a couple of minutes after a Zoom-sponsored intermission. This is Sleepless with Steve. We're live on YouTube. I mean, the good news is we got the rest of the 45 minutes or so to talk about Alien Romulus, okay? It's a brand new movie. Fede Alvarez directed it. I got to be honest, it was you and Dom, and which is ironic because he's not even here. You guys, I wasn't sure if I was going to see this movie because I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm not the biggest fan of the Alien franchise. I'm really not. I like the first. I mean, the first one's an absolute indisputable classic. I like the second movie. I didn't see Alien 3. I didn't see Resurrection. I never saw AVP or Requiem. I never saw those two. And then I came back for Prometheus and Covenant. I think the next movie, I probably will marathon them and re-review the first two.
Okay.
Like, I think I'll probably do that. I should have done it for this one, but I was on a time.
I should make a road trip out.
Month.
I should make a road trip out and like watch them with you just to see your reaction to a few.
Loan me the quadrilogy.
if I may, I'm kind of in a similar boat with you. Other than I've seen everything you haven't seen. I think the first one is amazing. I think it's an amazing horror film. I think it's absolutely fantastic. The second one, and I get shit from people about this all the time, I like it a lot. I think it's a great action film, but I think the first one made the alien way scarier. And then when you have the Marines, like, you know, taking them down left and right and all this other stuff, they're not as threatening anymore. They are still scary and everything, but it's more of an action movie. 3 I don't like, but, you know, it's not as bad as some people make it out to be. It is bad, but like some people call it the worst one. Resurrection to me is the worst one. Both AVP movies I think kind of stink. PG-13 one's okay with its action, but other than that, it's so convoluted. Prometheus I thought was fun. It was cool to get Ridley Scott to do something like that again. I don't like Covenant at all, and we'll talk about this one now.
The one thing I will say, first things first, that's funny. Alien versus Predator I just saw is on Disney Plus, which
Oh,
is
wow.
very fun, which is very funny to me. And the other thing I will admit, even though I didn't, like I said, I didn't see it. I remember because it came out the same year as the SpongeBob movie. And I
Yeah.
remember as a kid, that was the year I went to the theater way more often with my uncle and my mother. That was like the year where I went to the theater maybe like 6 times, which for like an 8-year-old's a lot. But I remember the poster of that movie, and I love the tagline because it said, "Whoever wins, we lose."
Yeah.
I thought that was funny. I remember even as a kid, like getting the dark humor of that. And
Yeah.
then thinking, I remember even thinking as a kid too, because it came out the year before. I remember thinking Freddy versus Jason should have used that tagline.
Yeah.
That would have been great. Back and better than ever. It's Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube. We are talking one battle after another, one thing after another with this movie to talk about because it leaves you with a lot to chew on. I was just going into a brief TED talk on VistaVision just because it caught my eye when I was reading some of the liner notes for the movie and just thinking like reading more about VistaVision. So now I'm an expert. But I wanted to make that clear though, because I do think that nowadays with directors becoming more empowered and having larger budgets for studios and stuff like that, they're requesting a lot of different stuff and a lot of technology that either is seldom used or not as pervasively employed as it has been in years past. So I thought it was worth mentioning the VistaVision. Where would you like to take this review, Joe?
I one thing everybody's been talking because this is related to cinematography, but like I don't know if you've seen it, but when Sinners came to IMAX, there was that theater. I think it's in Indiana, maybe, or somewhere. I forget where, but it's the largest IMAX theater, and it's they took a photo from where the projector's at, and you saw just everyone watching the scene where all the instruments start bringing like other time periods and everything, and just seeing that scene just glow onto the audience was cool. People have been doing that, or that same like theater and everything released another photo of the highway scene. What was the scene to you though, like cinematography wise? You just felt like, wow, I'm watching this grand epic movie. For me, it was the scene where he goes to Sensei Carlos's house. And like I said, how it's a tracking shot, not all one shot, like, there are cuts and everything, but it's him walking through this house, and it's room after room, and everything else happening outside the home too. And where eventually it leads to, where it's like you're following Sensei Carlos now, and then it cuts back to Bob, and he's doing this one other thing. Then it cuts back to Sensei Carlos, and he's doing another thing. And then both of them are leaving. Then Bob's on the rooftops, and he's running across the rooftop. I just thought to myself, I'm like, dude, like this is like a 20-minute scene of just people like going, "Are you doing this? All right, we gotta go." It was like repeating dialogue. We have to get this done. We have to get this done. Like, it was just all that. But I am on the edge of my seat. It's just people. It's a guy being held up on a phone, and then a guy just telling people, "Hey, you guys got to get out of here now," and everything. And the entire time, I'm leaning forward, like, "Holy shit! Like, what's gonna happen next?" Like, cause just the way it's shot, like how it's moving from room to room, and how like it's framed and everything, and where eventually it leads to. I was just like, this is an amazing sequence. I'm honestly, I'm on the edge of my seat. This is thrilling, and all it is a guy walking through his house the entire time.
Yeah, that's definitely a noteworthy one for me. I think that speaks to how I think if there's a word for this movie, was trying to find the right word really when writing my review and stuff. I think propulsive is the word for it, which is like a constant forward motion that this movie's in. For a movie that's always marching forward, it doesn't leave you behind.
Yeah.
It doesn't leave you behind because this movie does a lot. I mean, it's a long movie, but it does a lot with like allowing you to know the characters and allowing you to be introduced to them formerly as their younger selves at 16 years prior to when the story takes place for about 30 minutes. And then we get dropped into the present timeline of the story. And even when you have like Bob and Willa and Lockjaw, and then Sensei Sergio comes into play. You have all these characters that then come, in different points, and then there's a lot of changing perspectives and everything. It's juggled very valiantly, and part of that is also just because of how gorgeous the cinematography is. Credit where credit's due. Michael Bauman is the cinematographer on the film, and him and Paul, and again, kind of as I was explaining with this whole VistaVision, format that they employ for this movie, is that you have these large landscapes too, and they're really realized. And this is the reason. This is if you're on the fence about seeing the movie, like the theater affords you the opportunity to really get the experience of the car chase scenes.
Oh my God, man.
Because they're not like any car chase scene that you can reasonably draw. Like they reminded me a little bit of like Vanishing Point, 2-lane blacktop, but they're not explicitly the same either.
The one in the beginning where after they leave the bank, that one's great. But yeah, the climax one, the way it's shot, I never had an experience like this when watching a car chase. And let me know if you felt the same way. But so when the car chase, for those of you who don't know, it takes place in a valley. I won't give away too much, but it takes place in a valley. So the cars are constantly going up and down a hill. And there's a shot where like they literally mount the camera to the hood of the car. So you're watching it go up and down. I got the same feeling I got of going on a roller coaster when you dive down and my stomach sank into my stomach and then came back up as I was going up. And all I thought to myself was, that's incredible that you're able to convey that to me through the screen. I haven't felt like that in a long time when it came to cinematography.
There's like a reactionary motion quality to it.
Yeah.
Not as significant of an example, but just something I always think of. It's like when they showed there's a long documentary. It's like 10 hours. It's called The History of I think it's called The History of Cinema. I think that's what it's called. It's oh damn it, I can't remember the guy's name who marked something, but it's great, and it shows the earliest things to be shown in theaters, like shorts of like a train passing through town, and there's actual footage of like people sitting in a theater and the train is going towards the camera and the people get out of the way and flee to the aisles, because that's how fucking new the technology was. You know what I mean? They'd never seen anything like that before. Television wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
But
well, my dad told me too, like when he saw Star Wars and like when the big spaceship comes in episode 4, that is, when the big spaceship came in, people like turned around and looked at the camera because they were like, is this actually happening on screen? Like they're able to do something that massive on the screen right now? Like people never saw something like that, man.
This is a smaller example, but I think it leads to what you're talking about though, is that like that sort of reactionary motion element too is also, I think, loaned too, because camera's been mounted on a car before, but when you extend the screen a little bit more due to the widescreen ratio, and then you give it like sort of this higher res, where it still has a little bit of the film grain and everything, but it's like higher res, but it just looks vintage. It looks vintage in a way. It gives you this sort of like lived in quality of the movie that's really, that you don't experience. And it takes somebody with the vision of like Paul Thomas Anderson, and credit to Michael Bauman too, the cinematographer, takes somebody with the vision to achieve that.
And also credit to the Johnny Greenwood, because the score in this movie is damn good. Throughout the entire time during that car chase and other parts of the movie, I'm leaning on the edge of my seat because I care about the characters, the story I'm invested in. It's shot well, but that music, when it's going, I'm like, okay, we're locked in. This is it. Like this is pure cinema. Like my God.
Yeah, and with Paul Thomas Anderson, I've not seen everything he's done. I've seen probably about half, quite honestly, about
I've
what
actually only
he's
seen
done.
Boogie Nights and
Did you see Licorice Pizza?
I have not seen Licorice Pizza still. Oh, I saw Inherent Vice. I thought it was okay.
That I did not watch. I didn't watch that. I didn't watch The Master either. And I wasn't crazy about Phantom Thread with Daniel Day-Lewis. I had a lot to say. For being bored, I had a lot to say about it back then. I was going back to my review of that. I had a lot to say about it despite being bored. But what Anderson has found here is like this really great ability to like, achieve like forward motion for this movie too, because this, honestly, if you're looking, I almost feel like some PTA fans would be disappointed, but at the same time the reception for this has been so good across the board, I don't think they are, that PTA's movies can sometimes be very quiet and they can be very pensive, like Phantom Thread, like The Master. They're more like intellectually stirring than they are physical. This movie though has this divine ability that kind of has like these blockbuster runaway train kind of set pieces embedded in a story that talks about like culture change, paternal daughter disconnect, radical politics and extremism too. And also just like these warring factions of extremists on both ends of the spectrum. But it feels so developed, and the characters feel more than just vessels into the world. That was one of my chief criticisms for Ari Aster's Eddington, was that the characters did not feel like characters. The characters felt like vessels. The characters
Yes.
did not feel like their purpose was anything other than to communicate a message or to show the various extremes of both entities. This movie's the opposite.
I felt the same. I didn't want to say it because I was like, well, Don will be here, but like the entire time I was watching it, I felt like, damn, this reminds me of what I actually thought I was gonna get with Eddington. Not even just political commentary wise, but just having these characters exist in this kind of landscape as well. These actually feel like people. I get to know them. And it's not because like I get to spend the prologue, if you want to call it that, like to their story and everything with them. No, it's because like even like as they're just going about their day and everything, or like as they're just doing actions and everything, I'm learning about who they are just by how they like handle something, how they do something. Like I said, you learn about Sean Penn's character just by the way he walks. But just by the way he walks, you know what kind of character he is. Just by his weird tics, you know what kind of guy he is. He doesn't have to say a word yet, and it's just like, I know what this guy is. And the more he talks, it's like, yep, that's exactly what I thought he was. The same goes for Leo. The same goes for Chase Infinity's Willa. It goes for all these people. These feel like fully realized characters, and it was so exciting to see like how it all came together in the end too. Because I've seen some people, and I agree that like it is a long movie, and I've seen some people say like by the end, like I was like, okay, this could wrap up now. For me, like by the time it wrapped up, I went, no way, that was 2 hours and 45 minutes. That flew by for me because I was just that invested.
Yeah, and I will also add too, it really feels like I would put money on it now. I'm glad I don't gamble on the Oscars. I think Sean Penn's got to be the betting favorite for Best Supporting Actor.
Oh yeah,
I think he's got to be the betting favorite.
I'm really trying to think of other actor performances that would be considered supporting this year. I can't.
I don't know what the Academy's going to do with Ryan Coogler or with Michael B. Jordan. Excuse me.
That has to be lead. Like that
has to be lead dual role.
Yeah.
I would think that's what that's going to wind up being. I feel like Sean Penn though. I feel like Sean Penn's got a really good, really strong case for how good he is in this movie.
Maybe Josh Brolin in Weapons. Maybe
I think Weapons is a long shot for Oscars. I really do. Unfortunately,
it probably is. Even The Long Walk. I look at The Long Walk and like both our two leads there. I'm like,
Johnson.
Yeah. Like it's not going to be lead. It's going to be lead actor from one of those two. Maybe both of them will get it. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I really can't think of
Well, and it's hard to handicap awards season now too, because there really is no such thing as awards season anymore. Now with streaming and everything, like there's no, like it used to be September to December, January was when you got your Oscar contender movies. These movies now come out at various times on different streaming platforms throughout the year. There's movies that come out and barely make a whimper, and you don't hear anything about them until the Oscars roll around and everything like that too. So you really like it's harder than ever now to try to get a finger on the pulse of the Oscars because of that reason, because everything is so damn scattershot. And we still got another Yorgos Lanthimos movie coming up this year too.
I was about to say too, like even though there is really no Oscar season, like an Oscar nominated movie can come out in March. We've seen it now both these last 2 years with Dune and now Sinners.
Right.
But yeah, towards the tail end is usually when we get like the bang, bang, bomb, like the big hitters, and you're like, oh, okay, there we go. Like, this guy's getting nominated for this guy's getting nominated for that. But I mean, like right now, like nothing comes to mind in terms of supporting characters. They really don't, unless if you want to get into the like the nitty gritty of it. I mean, I guess you could be like, I don't know, Caught Stealing, The Naked Gun. Like it's just like I can see those getting Golden Globe performances, but not Oscar ones. So it's just like it's tough. It's really tough to say.
That's why I think Sean Penn. I think Sean Penn is a pretty good bet for supporting actor, just because he's so fantastic in this movie.
I didn't see the Phoenician scheme. I didn't know if like that had any.
I didn't see it either.
Okay, well there we go. We won't know then.
No, I'll tell you, I really enjoyed this movie. I don't feel like I enjoyed it as much as everybody else, and I have a hard time figuring out why.
Mm.
I think it's a really well done movie. I don't know if it was maybe some of the pacing that sort of kind of left me a little bit like, I guess, scattered in a
That
way.
is the common criticism I've heard. I didn't feel it, but like one of my friends even said like sometimes some of the sequences kind of just went on a little bit too long, that I felt like I was getting disconnected from other storylines. For me, I was just invested the whole way through.
Yeah, and again, where I make that argument here is another, or where I make that claim here is in the movie like Weapons, which is very staccato and
Yeah.
very punctuated by different perspectives and everything like that. I praise that movie too. I don't know. I would like to rewatch this too. I would like to see this again. But I liked a lot about it though. I like sort of the percussive score by Johnny Greenwood that you mentioned. I like the soundtrack too. I'll say that like when a movie can feature both Steely Dan and Shaq West in a movie, like
Yeah.
it's automatically at least a good movie. You know, they let Dirty Work by Steely Dan breathe. Like that, and that's one of those songs, and I feel this way about. I don't know how much Steely Dan you're entrenched. Back when we used to be on WONC, I used to throw Steely Dan on for the interstitial music that we had to play.
Yeah.
In the hour, I used to throw Steely Dan on quite a bit. Steely Dan. If you go a long time without hearing some of their songs, you go back and you really remember how fucking great they are. And
Yeah.
I listened to Dirty Work twice today after that.
Well,
you
what
know,
was it? There are some. I mean, I love "Reeling in the Years." I think that's like one of my favorite songs of all time. But there were some songs by them that like when you were done with the radio station and you went on to an actual real radio station and everything. Not that WNC wasn't, but like when you actually got paid to be there for full time and everything. And I had to do Sleepless from like 12 to 6 a.m. on Wednesdays. I used to just throw on some Steely Dan. I'm like, I don't care. It's 3 a.m. right now. You're getting a 5x5 of Steely Dan, maybe a 6x6. I don't care.
Ricky, don't lose that number,
Yeah.
Asia. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this though. I think it's a very, it's one of those movies too that like, if describing the plot like how I did earlier, it sounds heavy. And it is at times a heavy movie, especially the first hour acclimation into this world too. When you're dealing with this, like when you're getting an up close look at the French 75 and you're getting an up close look at this sort of like extremist acts and everything, it's a lot to handle right off the cuff.
Yeah.
But the movie does a good job for a movie that hopscotches perspectives. It does a pretty good job of developing the characters, making you care about them too. And when you have domestic political turmoil at the center of a movie that's almost 3 hours long, to make it constantly like propulsive and marching forward and not lagging behind too far, I think is a credit in itself too. And then I also go back, I think the standout thing of this movie that I will remember is Leonardo DiCaprio like actually embracing a fatherly role in a way that's even still unconventional for him. And
Yeah.
I really like that about this movie. That's probably the chief thing I love the most about this movie. So it's 3 out of 4 stars for me. A very firm 3 out of 4 stars.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the headline before the journalists get it. This is one Oscar after another, man, because that's just how probably that night's gonna go. I don't know if it'll be Best Picture. I could see this winning maybe Best Director, maybe Best Cinematography, Best Score. I just see it getting nominated for a lot, and I see it potentially winning a ton of those, depending on how much steam it gets towards Oscar season. There's only one way to tell, and that's, we usually get a gauge for all that towards the actual award season and everything of like, yeah, this is the lock-in bet right here. For me, I really love this movie. It also was crazy to come out of a movie that I feel like is so relevant. And I'm not just talking about relevancy because of like what's happening now today in cities across America and everything, but just also like, in terms of just like, you do have, I'm not saying these groups are domestic terrorists and everything. I'm not saying that or near. I'm not trying to say anything, but we do have groups of people out there that are doing stuff to like, go against certain people that they would consider a regime and everything. And it's just like, wow, like even if this didn't come out this year, I would still feel like this is so relevant to the current political landscape. and it feels so more real and grounded and actually authentic compared to Eddington, which I felt got way too cartoonish at times with what it was trying to say. And then at the end of the day, it just, it shrugged and went, but we're all crazy, am I right, guys? And it's just like, like, you could have that message of everybody's crazy, everybody's doing something, but you have to still, like, kind of say something with it. You can't just throw your hands up in the air and say, well, what do you know? I mean, that's just life. Go on, I thought you were about to say something.
Oh, no, go for it.
Oh, okay. With this movie, I feel like not only does it say something, but it gives you more to chew on too. Even if you're not agreeing with what it's saying politically, even though you're not agreeing with it, and it's not like it's shoving a political message really in your face.
It really isn't.
Yeah. Despite what some news outlets
isn't.
might be saying and everything, it's really not shoving that in your face. My dad, who is more of a conservative than I am and everything, actually said, "No, I looked at this as this was a war movie that's fought here. Like, there are two sides to this war, and it's what Sean Penn's character is, and it's what Leo's character is, and it's just a war movie just fought on our, like, soil." And he's like, and for that, he's like, I thought it was really entertaining. And I'm just like, yeah, like, it's not really shoving it down your throat at all. It's, at the end of the day, PTA came here to tell a story, give you characters to care about, and have some thrilling action sequences to go along with it, too. It's one of my favorite movies of the year. I don't know what's going to stack up when we do our best of the year, but I'm going to say this, man. I have been waiting for a year like 2025 ever since we got out of the pandemic, because I was like, I'm like, every once in a while, I'm like, okay, I got a 4-star movie here, I have a 4-star movie there. I know some people are like, I try not to give 4-star movie reviews out. It's like, no, I don't mind it. If I feel like a movie deserves it, it deserves it. One Battle After Another is, like, I think my 6th 4-star movie this year, and I don't care. 2025 is killing it, man. There are so many damn good movies. Most of that list is horror movies, but I don't care. We're still killing it in the game, baby. 4 out of 4 stars. I can't wait to see what the rest of the year has got up its sleeve.
1 star after another for this
One
movie,
star
huh?
after another, baby.
No, and it's not anecdotal. It's kind of like, just sort of personal bias, and we're such a regimented culture nowadays too that, like, there is no consensus zeitgeist or anything. Like, outside of Taylor Swift and politics, there is very few things that, like, everybody knows about at the same moment in time and everybody has an opinion on, I think. But, like, you see, like you were talking about, like, with Eddington and stuff, and how you said that, like, the movie sort of, like, devolves into a cartoon and, like, throws its hands up in the air and doesn't really, land the plane in what it wants to say. And you said what I agree with. You can do that, but don't be surprised. Like, Ari Aster made a movie this year. It came out fewer than 3 months ago, and it's pretty much disappeared off the radar.
Yeah.
Like, and we're one battle after another you're going to hear about well into award season and everything like that too. That's another thing, is that you look at what this movie is and how much more complete it is from a character perspective and from, I would even argue, an aesthetic perspective. You look at how much more complete it is, and that's part of its impact too. Versus Eddington, at least.
Yeah.
Like, and it's an interesting point of comparison too, because I did think about it a couple times while watching this movie, and then I try to, like, what happens is I kind of, like, mentally challenge myself. It's like, well, why is this connecting with me and not that?
Yeah.
Like, I try to, like, mentally challenge myself in that regard too, and I think it really boils down to richer character development, and also I think more of an experimentalist style that.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, kind of makes you forget how subversive it is just by how well it's handled. So next week on the show, we're reviewing Roofman. We'll give Dom an opportunity to talk about One Battle After Another, since he did see it, but unfortunately couldn't join us tonight. So I look forward to that as well. This was a great review too, and it sets up what's going to be a busy couple of months here now to end the year as far as movies are concerned. So I'm really excited to be talking to you guys about that too. We got Wicked coming out here very soon.
Yeah.
Feels like I saw that movie in theaters like 3 weeks ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we talked about this off air, but, like, when I was making the schedule, like, for Steve to approve of like what movies we should go for and everything, I just said, I'm like, guys, like, I'm gonna be honest with you, I think the rest of the year it's banger after banger, honestly. Like, and like when Steve looked at it, even he was like, I think you're kind of right.
I'm like, I don't really have any argument. Like, like as far as what the all these movies are worth talking about, even if bad or good, regardless, if a movie's going to be topical,
Yeah.
or if when we do pivot to smaller, more niche movies like The Luckiest Man in America or something like that, I try to make sure, even Hard Truths, I try to make sure that I have some substance or some connection with the material that
Yeah.
makes it worth discussing, especially for you two as well.
And you know
Because
what
it's
I
usually
forget
something
too?
I volley up.
What I forget too is this is one of those times where we're doing Sleepless. This happened to us, I think, in the second year that we rebooted the show. But both Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve fall on a Wednesday, so we have it's basically 2 weeks without Sleepless, and then we come back for Avatar, and then we do our best of war stuff.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because like I said, the week of Christmas Eve, the week of Thanksgiving, and the week of New Year's, we generally take off.
Yeah,
Unless the show falls on like the 28th,
yeah,
or something like that, and we're able to do it. But I just say that, like, yeah, it's true now because Christmas and New Year's were Wednesdays last year.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So now it makes sense that the eves are now Wednesdays and whatnot.
Yeah,
too.
I guess
So
last
yes.
year then we had the same issue then. Yeah.
Yeah, last year it was an issue then. Either way, though, I think the days have just fallen so close to the holidays. That's why you give them off. That's why I give them off.
Yeah.
But at
I
any rate,
realized, too, we can't actually we have to move back a review because I forgot we have Thanksgiving week.
oh shit, we do. Oh, I gotta
Yeah,
look
we
at.
didn't mark that, so
I have
I'll
not been keeping
I'll-
up with the schedules due diligently. If you want to edit it, you're more than
Yeah,
welcome
I'll
to. I
put-
trust
You
you.
know what? It actually helps a lot because like there's a day where I'm like, hey, we can review any of these 3 movies, but because we'll have to push this movie back, which we have to talk about this movie, then we'll have a solidified schedule where it's like it's this, this, and this that we're reviewing the next 3 weeks, and then it goes into Christmas.
You see how much inside baseball goes into this operation? I'm telling
Yeah.
you.
Speaking
why
of
the
baseball,
reason
what
why-
are the Cubs doing right now?
That's a good question. Whether we are, well, I was gonna say whether we're on the show or not, we are definitely sleepless with how much work this requires, especially
Hey,
on
they won.
Joe's end. Especially on Joe's end. Oh, they did win. Oh,
Yeah.
they did win.
4-3.
Nice. Nice, they did win. Okay, they're keeping the hope alive.
Yeah.
At any rate, that's our show tonight. Greatly appreciate you tuning in wherever you may be, however you may be listening. For Joe Viso, the unseen but still loved Dominic Guanzon, and yours truly, this has been Sleepless with Steve.